My parents mistreated me in childhood, and now they demand that I return to work on the farm and invest all my money in the family budget. I'm not really sure how to start this, but I need to get this off my chest. My name is Alex, and I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone else. You'd think that kind of environment would be supportive and nurturing, but for me, it was the opposite. From a young age, I was different. I wasn't interested in the things the other kids were into. While they were excited about working on the family farms or the local ferry, I spent my time reading books and dreaming about exploring the world beyond our town. My parents, especially my dad, never understood this. In our family, tradition was everything, and every male had worked on the ferry for generations. My dad, John, was a hard man. He believed in discipline and hard work, and he expected me to follow in his footsteps without question. My mom, Susan, was more understanding, but still expected me to stay and contribute to the family business. My older brother, Mark, was the golden child. He embraced the family tradition with open arms and was already working on the ferry by the time I was 10. From an early age, it was clear that I didn't fit the mold. My dad would often mock my interests, calling me a dreamer with no sense of reality. At school, things weren't any better. The other kids followed their parents' lead, seeing me as an outsider. I remember one particularly humiliating event in 5th grade. We had a school project about our future careers. While other kids talked about working on the ferry or taking over the family farm, I talked about becoming an engineer and building bridges. The teacher, Mrs. Harper, smiled politely, but I could see the skepticism in her eyes. The other kids laughed, and one of them, Jake, sneered, "You think you're better than us?" High school was even worse. By then, the divide between me and everyone else had grown into a chasm. I was bullied relentlessly. They called me city boy because of my dreams to leave and make something of myself. The worst part was that my dad seemed to encourage this behavior, thinking it would toughen me up and bring me back to reality. I remember one day walking home from school when Jake and his cronies jumped me. They beat me up pretty badly, and when I got home covered in bruises, my dad just looked at me and said, "Maybe this will teach you to stop dreaming and start working." The emotional and physical abuse took its toll. I became withdrawn and spent most of my time hiding in my room, reading and planning my escape. My mom tried to comfort me, but she was powerless against my dad's iron will. The only solace I found was in my studies. I worked hard and managed to get a scholarship to a university in another country. When I told my parents, my dad exploded. He called me a traitor, saying I was abandoning my family and my responsibilities. My brother, Mark, was no better. He accused me of being selfish and leaving him to shoulder all the burdens. The night before I left, my dad came into my room. For a moment, I thought he might say something kind or supportive, but instead he looked at me with a cold, hard stare and said, "You walk out that door and you're no son of mine." Those words cut deeper than any punch or kick ever could, but I didn't let it stop me. I left that small town behind and never looked back. University was a breath of fresh air. I was finally surrounded by people who shared my interests and dreams. I studied hard and graduated with honors, landing a job at a prestigious engineering firm. The work was challenging, but I loved every minute of it. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. As I delved deeper into my career, I seized every opportunity to advance and grow. I moved to a bustling city where the engineering field was thriving. I worked on several high-profile projects, each more challenging and rewarding than the last. I traveled to different countries, learning new techniques and meeting brilliant minds in the field. I eventually started my own engineering firm, which grew rapidly thanks to a combination of hard work and innovative designs. One of the most significant projects I undertook was a massive bridge construction in a developing country. It was a project that required not only technical expertise, but also cultural sensitivity and leadership skills. I spent months living on site, working alongside local engineers and laborers. We faced countless challenges, from logistical nightmares to political hurdles, but we persevered. The bridge became a symbol of progress and hope for the community, and it was one of the proudest moments of my career. Despite my success, I often think about my family in that small town. I wonder if they ever think about me, if they ever regret the way they treated me. I've heard through the grapevine that the ferry business isn't doing so well and that Mark is struggling to keep it afloat. Part of me feels guilty for leaving, but another part knows that I had to get out to survive. I've tried to maintain some contact with my mom over the years. She sends occasional emails updating me on family events and asking about my life. Our relationship remains strained, mostly because of my dad's lingering influence and my brother's resentment. I've made peace with the fact that I may never have a close relationship with them, but I've built a life that I'm proud of. Now, as I sit here writing this, I realize that my journey is far from over. I've built a life for myself, but the scars of my past still linger. I'm not sure if it'll ever fully heal, but sharing my story is a step in the right direction. Maybe someone out there will read this and find the strength to pursue their own dreams, no matter the obstacles. It's been a while since my last update, and a lot has happened since then. After leaving my small town and building a successful career, my life took some unexpected turns, and I want to share them with you. My career continued to flourish, and my engineering firm grew rapidly. We were taking on larger and more complex projects, and I was constantly traveling for work. It was during one of these trips that I met someone who would change my life forever. Her name was Emily. We met at a conference in Paris. She was an architect from another country, and we instantly connected over our shared passion for design and construction. Emily was brilliant, driven, and had a sense of adventure that matched mine. We spent the entire conference together, discussing projects, ideas, and our dreams for the future. By the end of the week, I knew I had found someone special. After the conference, Emily and I kept in touch. We talked every day, sharing our lives and our work. Despite the distance, our relationship grew stronger. I found myself flying to her country whenever I could, and she did the same. We explored new places, worked on joint projects, and supported each other's careers. A year later, we decided to take the next step. Emily moved to my city and we bought a house together. It was a beautiful old townhouse with lots of character and potential. We spent weekends renovating it, turning it into our dream home. Our life together was hectic but fulfilling. We were both passionate about our work, and we often collaborated on projects, blending our skills to create something unique. Our relationship wasn't without its challenges. Balancing two demanding careers while maintaining a healthy relationship required effort and communication. There were times when work took precedence, and we had to remind ourselves to make time for each other. But through it all, our love and respect for one another kept us going. After 3 years of dating, I proposed to Emily on a trip to Santorini. It was a perfect evening, with the sun setting over the caldera. She said yes, and we spent the rest of the trip celebrating our engagement. We planned a small wedding with close friends and family, making sure it reflected our personalities and values. The day was perfect, filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a future together. As our careers progressed, we faced new challenges and opportunities. Emily became a partner at her architecture firm, and I expanded my engineering business to new markets. We continued to travel, both for work and for pleasure, experiencing different cultures and gaining new perspectives. Our house became a hub for friends and family, a place where we hosted dinners, parties, and even professional gatherings. One of the most unexpected twists in our journey came when we decided to start a family. We had always been focused on our careers, but as we grew older, we realized we wanted to share our lives with children. It wasn't an easy decision, given our busy schedules, but we were determined to make it work. Emily and I welcomed our first child, a baby girl named Lily, a year after our wedding. The experience of becoming parents was both exhilarating and terrifying. We had to adjust our lives and priorities, finding a new balance between work and family. There were sleepless nights, moments of doubt, and challenges we hadn't anticipated, but seeing Lily grow and thrive made it all worthwhile. As our family grew, so did our ambitions. Emily and I started a joint venture, combining our expertise in architecture and engineering to create sustainable, innovative projects. Our business quickly gained a reputation for excellence, attracting high-profile clients and challenging projects. We were busier than ever, but we loved what we did, and we loved doing it together. I'm back with another update, and this one is quite intense. After my last post about my career and personal life, things took a dramatic turn that I never saw coming. It all started a few months ago when my parents showed up at my doorstep unannounced. I hadn't seen them in years, and their sudden arrival was a shock. My mom seemed anxious, and my dad had that familiar stern look on his face. They didn't waste any time getting to the point. My dad demanded that I invest all the money I had earned into the family ferry business and return home to work with them. He said the business was struggling, and they needed my help to save it. I was stunned. I had worked so hard to build my career and life here, and now they were asking me to throw it all away. I tried to explain that my life was here now, that I had responsibilities and commitments that I couldn't just abandon. But my dad wouldn't listen. He accused me of being selfish and ungrateful, of turning my back on my family when they needed me the most. For the next few weeks, my parents stayed in the city, pressuring me every day to come back home. They showed up at my office, called me incessantly, and even tried to guilt-trip Emily into convincing me. My dad's tactics became more aggressive. He started showing up at our house late at night, banging on the door and demanding to talk. It was a nightmare. One evening, things took a violent turn. My parents came to our house, and my dad was more agitated than usual. He barged in, shouting about how I was destroying the family legacy. When I refused to give in, he snapped. He grabbed me by the collar and shoved me against the wall. My mom tried to intervene, but he pushed her aside. Emily was horrified and called the police. The situation escalated quickly. My dad started hitting me, screaming that I was no son of his. My mom was crying, begging him to stop, but he was out of control. The police arrived just in time to pull him off me. They arrested him for assault, and my mom left with him looking devastated. I was left with a sense of disbelief and a bruised body. I couldn't comprehend how things had gotten so out of hand. Emily was shaken but supportive. She helped me file a restraining order against my dad, and I decided to press charges. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, but I knew I had to protect myself and my family. The legal process was grueling. My dad hired a lawyer and tried to fight the charges, claiming that I had provoked him. It was a messy, painful ordeal that dredged up old wounds and strained my relationship with my mom even further. Despite the challenges, I stayed strong and focused on the case. Emily was my rock through it all, providing unwavering support and encouragement. In the end, the court found my dad guilty of assault. He was sentenced to community service and ordered to attend anger management classes. My mom reached out to me afterward, asking for forgiveness and trying to mend our relationship. It wasn't easy, but I agreed to talk to her. We had a long, emotional conversation about everything that had happened. She admitted that they were desperate and scared, but she understood that they had crossed a line. My relationship with my dad remains strained. He hasn't spoken to me since the trial, and I don't know if we'll ever reconcile. But I've come to terms with it. I've learned that sometimes you have to let go of toxic relationships, even if they're with family. My priority is to protect the life I've built and the people I love. Through all of this, my career continued to thrive. Emily and I expanded our business, taking on new projects and hiring more talented professionals. We're more determined than ever to succeed and make a positive impact in our field. Despite the family drama, we managed to secure a contract for a groundbreaking project, a new eco-friendly residential complex in Singapore. It's a massive undertaking, with the potential to set new standards for sustainable living. Emily and I poured our hearts and souls into the project, working closely with a team of innovative designers and engineers to create something truly special. The project faced its own set of challenges. Regulatory hurdles, unexpected environmental issues, and logistical nightmares threatened to derail our progress. But each time we encountered a problem, Emily and I tackled it head-on, finding creative solutions and pushing forward. The experience brought us even closer together, strengthening our bond both personally and professionally. Our efforts paid off. The residential complex was completed on time and within budget, earning rave reviews from both the public and industry experts. It was a defining moment in our careers, validating all the hard work and sacrifices we had made. The project also garnered significant media attention, positioning us as leaders in sustainable design and construction. In the midst of our professional triumphs, Emily and I continued to build our family. We welcomed a second child, a boy named Max, 2 years after Lily was born. Balancing the demands of parenthood with our careers was challenging, but we made it work. Our home was filled with love, laughter, and the occasional chaos that comes with raising young children. One particularly memorable event occurred when Lily, at the age of 4, decided she wanted to help design a building like Mommy and Daddy. She spent an entire afternoon drawing her version of a skyscraper, complete with unicorns and rainbows. We framed her drawing and hung it in our office as a reminder of the importance of nurturing creativity and imagination. Our success also brought opportunities for travel and adventure. We were invited to speak at conferences around the world, sharing our experiences and insights with other professionals. These trips allowed us to explore new cultures, taste exotic cuisines, and make lifelong friends. We even took Lily and Max on some of our travels, exposing them to the wonders of the world at a young age. Despite the many joys, life was not without its hurdles. The strain of managing a growing business and raising a family sometimes took its toll on our relationship. There were moments of tension and exhaustion, where we questioned if we were spreading ourselves too thin. But each time, we reminded ourselves of the love and passion that had brought us together. We made a conscious effort to carve out time for each other, whether it was a quiet dinner at home or a weekend getaway to recharge. One of the most significant turning points came when we were approached by a major international firm interested in acquiring our company. The offer was tempting, promising financial security and the chance to take on even larger projects. Emily and I spent countless nights discussing the pros and cons, weighing our options carefully. Ultimately, we decided to take the leap. Selling our company was bittersweet, but it opened up new possibilities for both of us. Emily took on a leadership role within the acquiring firm, while I pursued new ventures in sustainable urban development. We continued to collaborate on select projects, but the sale allowed us to focus more on our family and personal interests. Our decision proved to be the right one. The transition brought a sense of balance and fulfillment that had been missing during the hectic years of running our own business. We were able to spend more quality time with Lily and Max, watching them grow and thrive. We also dedicated more time to our hobbies and passions, from Emily's love of painting to my interest in photography. One day, an unexpected letter arrived. It was from my dad. In it, he expressed his regret for how he had treated me and acknowledged the success and happiness I had achieved on my own terms. He apologized for the pain he had caused and asked if we could try to rebuild our relationship. It was a heartfelt letter, and for the first time I saw a glimmer of hope for reconciliation. I wasn't sure how to respond at first. The wounds were still fresh, and the memory of his actions was hard to forget. But with Emily's support and encouragement, I decided to give it a chance. We arranged a meeting, and while it was awkward and tense at first, we slowly began to find common ground. It wasn't an instant fix, but it was a start. As I sit here writing this, I'm filled with a mix of emotions. The past few months have been incredibly challenging, but they have also shown me the strength and resilience I didn't know I had. I'm grateful for the support of my wife and the life we've built together. The future remains uncertain, but I'm ready to face whatever comes next. I hope you've all been well. After everything that's happened, Emily and I have been enjoying a period of relative calm and stability. Our kids, Lily and Max, are growing up so fast, and it's been incredible watching them discover the world. Emily's painting has taken off, and she's even had a few exhibitions. As for me, I've been focusing on some smaller projects and spending more time with the family. It felt like we'd finally found a perfect balance. But as life often does, things took a turn I never saw coming. It was a quiet evening 4 months into this tranquil period. Emily and the kids were out for the night visiting her parents, and I was enjoying some alone time, reading a book in our living room. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and when I opened it, I was shocked to see my brother Mark standing there. Mark looked frantic and disheveled, a stark contrast to the composed figure I remembered. Before I could say anything, he forced his way inside, grabbing my arm with a grip of iron. "We need to talk," he said, his voice trembling with urgency. Before I could respond, Mark pulled out a length of rope and started tying my hands. Panic surged through me as I tried to struggle, but he was stronger and more desperate. "Mark, what the hell are you doing?" I yelled, but he didn't answer. Within minutes, he had me bound and gagged, dragging me out to his car. He opened the trunk and shoved me inside, slamming it shut above me. The drive felt like an eternity. My mind raced with fear and confusion. Why was Mark doing this? What had driven him to such extremes? The car finally stopped, and the trunk opened. Mark pulled me out roughly, and I saw that we were at our old family home. My parents were nowhere in sight, and the house looked eerily abandoned. Mark dragged me inside and tied me to a chair in the living room. He removed the gag, and I immediately demanded answers. "Why, Mark? Why are you doing this?" He paced the room, his eyes wild. "The business, Alex. It's collapsing. I've tried everything, but I need your help. Dad was right, we can't do this without you. I'm not coming back, Mark, I said firmly. You can't force me to give up my life. Mark's expression twisted in anger. You think you're better than us, don't you? Just because you made it out there in the big city. Well, you're not. You owe this family. Hours passed as he continued to rant, and I realized just how far gone he was. Eventually, exhaustion overcame him, and he fell asleep on the couch. I seized the opportunity to try and free myself, but the knots were too tight. Morning came, and with it, a ray of hope. The police had been alerted to my disappearance, thanks to Emily. They tracked Mark's car to our old home and burst through the door. Mark was arrested, and I was finally freed. The relief was overwhelming, but I knew this was just the beginning of another ordeal. The legal proceedings were complicated. Mark was charged with kidnapping and assault. Our family's dirty laundry was aired in court, and the strain on all of us was immense. My parents were devastated, unable to comprehend how things had escalated so drastically. During the trial, some shocking revelations came to light. It turned out that Mark had been hiding the true state of the ferry business from everyone. He had accumulated significant debt through reckless investments and had been siphoning money from the company to cover his tracks. His desperation to save the business had driven him to this breaking point. One of the most unexpected twists came when Emily decided to testify on my behalf. She recounted the night of the kidnapping and detailed the impact it had on our family. Her testimony was powerful and moving, shedding light on the lengths Mark had gone to and the fear we had endured. The jury found Mark guilty, and he was sentenced to several years in prison. It was a heartbreaking outcome, but necessary for justice and for the safety of our family. My parents were shattered, and our relationship became even more strained. They couldn't understand how things had gone so wrong between their sons. As I tried to move on from the ordeal, life threw another curveball. One evening, while Emily and I were having dinner, I received a call from an unknown number. It was a detective from my hometown, informing me that my father had been hospitalized after a severe heart attack. Despite everything, I felt a pang of concern and decided to visit him. When I arrived at the hospital, my mom was already there, looking older and more fragile than I remembered. She hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her face. "He's asking for you, Alex," she said. I walked into my dad's room, and the sight of him hooked up to machines brought back a flood of memories. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry, son," he said weakly. "I never meant for things to go this way." We had a long, emotional conversation. For the first time, my dad opened up about his fears and failures, admitting that he had been too hard on me and too blind to see my potential. It was a moment of catharsis for both of us. And while it didn't erase the past, it helped us start to heal. In the following weeks, I spent more time with my parents, helping them navigate the fallout from Mark's actions and the business's collapse. Emily was incredibly supportive, stepping in to manage our projects while I was away. We decided to help my parents sell the ferry business and move to a smaller, more manageable property. Life slowly began to settle down again. My dad's health improved, and my parents found peace in their new home. Our family dynamics were forever changed, but we were trying to find a new normal. Mark's imprisonment remained a heavy burden, but we visited him regularly, hoping to support his rehabilitation. Emily and I returned to our life in the city, more determined than ever to protect the family we had built. The experiences had brought us closer and reinforced our commitment to each other and our children. We continued to grow our business, focusing on projects that made a positive impact on communities and the environment. One of the most rewarding projects we took on was developing a series of eco-friendly schools in underserved areas. It was a chance to give back and use our skills for a greater good. The schools were designed to be self-sustaining, with solar panels, rainwater harvesting systems, and community gardens. Seeing the smiles on the children's faces as they explored their new schools was a reminder of why we do what we do. As I sit here writing this, I'm filled with a mix of emotions. The past few months have been incredibly challenging, but they've also shown me the strength and resilience I didn't know I had. I'm grateful for the support of my wife and the life we've built together. The future remains uncertain, but I'm ready to face whatever comes next.